Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Christ and Coffee podcast, bringing the church together one coffee hour conversation at a time. Today, we have Zaven Khanjian, who is the executive director and CEO of the Armenian Missionary Association of America. It's also known as the AMAA. Zaven is originally from the Middle East. He moved to Los Angeles in 1979, where he started a successful real estate company. Zaven has always been helping charitable organizations and is now leading the AMAA. So Zaven, so good to have you on the program and good to have this opportunity to talk and hear about the great things that AMAA is doing right now in the world. So welcome.
Hi, thank you very much for initiating this talk.
How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Of course, travel takes a toll, and I guess the current affairs in the nation, in the world, in the Armenian community, and all that, of course, adds on. But we're ready. We're there to serve, and God gives us the strength. We praise God for that, and we continue on doing what is expected.
That's great. For those who may not know, what is the AMAA? If you could explain it to them.
The best way to describe the AMAA is that it is the missionary arm of the Armenian Evangelical Church. So it's kind of a child of the Armenian Evangelical Church, Armenian Evangelical movement. It was founded after the genocide, very reasonably and logically, as a consequence of the genocide and the realization of the church in America at the time of the burden that they needed and had to carry on to get to the orphans and widows in the deserts of the Syrian deserts, actually, and reach out to them and help them. So that's how it started on June 8, 1918, in Worcester, Massachusetts, after being well planned for 2 consecutive years by a committee organized by the Union of the Churches of the Armenian Evangelical Church, in the Eastern United States at the time. So it was the child of the church with the burden of reaching out to their kin, especially right after the genocide in the Near East. As Armenians moved, of course, the survivors moved out of historic Armenia. Our churches were in ruins, our people were in ruin, and the mastermind of the elite who thought about that are really ingenious, I would say, because what the AMA does today reflects back on 102 years ago on the vision that these people had, and we owe it to them.
Yeah, it's been amazing, the 102 years, how the organization has grown in multiple countries. And you just traveled to Armenia, Syria, and Lebanon. I mean, it's been quite the year for the Armenian diaspora. You had the war in Artsakh last year. You have the economic crisis and the explosion in Lebanon, and then recovery post-civil war in Syria. And these are 3 locations where AMAA is heavily involved with various charitable relief efforts. I know that's a lot to discuss because it's so many problems, but it's always important to know that there's people doing good work in the midst of difficult circumstances. So how was the trip overall? And I know we talked about it, and it was quite amazing to hear all the things that was going on.
Before I get there, it's point out a few important dates, let's say, on the timeline of the Armenian Missionary Association of America's 102-year history. It certainly started slow. There was a partnership at the time, at the beginning, with the American Board of Missionaries. They even had a joint executive council to together to reach out to the orphans and orphans and widows and the remnants of the survivors of the Armenian genocide as we spoke. And then the AMAA went along on its own, and one of the heroes, one of the giants of the leaders of the AMAA that should be remembered is Reverend Arakel Bedikian, A.A. Bedikian, who was also a pastor of the Armenian Evangelical Church of New York for many years, and I guess the longest serving executive secretary at the time of the AMAA. Then came, this was until late 1940s or mid 1940s. Then came Puissant Kalfayan from the Near East to take the helm of the AMAA in the early 50s. And he too was a cornerstone in the history of the AMAA. AMAA took a different direction, I would say, at his time when Stepan Piribosyan went on a mission to the Near East and physically said, you know, Vini Vidi Vici, I came, I saw, now I need to conquer. When you saw the situation that our people were living in, our educational establishment, our churches and the communities, life standards, he came back and established the first endowment fund with the AMAA in the early 1950s. I think it was around $100,000. And that has grown, as you know, into a very hefty arsenal, let's say, or a pot of investment portfolio, which funds 50% of AMAA's budget today. So these are kind of landmark times and individuals in the history of the AMAA. And the last one that I'd like to mention after the 1988 earthquake, of course, Reverend Jambazian, Moses Jambazian, was on the helm of the AMAA at the right time, the right person at the right time. When we entered Armenia after the earthquake, first of all, to take care of the new orphans of Spidak and Gyumri at the time, establishing the Orphan and Child Care Committee, which actually started before Armenia was registered in the AMAA was before the AMAA was registered in Armenia, and it carried on after it registered in 1991 after independence. That is one of the signature programs and services of the AMAA, which continues until today. And so the AMAA grew over this time, and excuse me, it is today, of course, at the peak of its budget in terms of spending budget on services and programs all over the world in 24 countries, the lion's share being in Armenia itself. And second comes the Near East. So that again is a small picture of the 102 years. Now let me go where, of course, the focus and the epicenter of our people are, which is Armenia and Artsakh, and then Syria and Lebanon, and the trip that I had in May and June. It was a landmark trip because of the fact that none of us moved for a year and a half.
I remember right before the pandemic, we did a road trip to Fresno together. That was quite historic. And then right when we got back, it was officially a pandemic.
Absolutely. In fact, that was the last, I guess, event board meeting that we had in Glendale, California. Was the last person to person next to each other, and we didn't know that the COVID was around us. And of course, the Fresno AMA Sunday that we did together. So Armenia was on our mind, and Syria certainly had been on my mind for a long, long time as a result of the 10-year almost war and devastation in the country. So when we reached in Armenia and landed at Zvartnot airport. I'd never seen both the airport and the hotel and the Republic Square in the manner that we witnessed in May 2021. It definitely reminded us of the war, reminded us of COVID-19, and reminded us that we are living in a different time, in a different circumstances. The places were dark, streets were empty, including the airport. We had the fastest get through customs at the airport because there were no other arrivals, planes, or other people in there. It was bleak and painful. I would say that certainly was the result of both the war and COVID, but I should immediately admit that it changed very fast. We arrived in Yerevan on May 18th. By May 31st, when I left Yerevan to Beirut, things had changed a lot, be it at the airport, be it at the hotel, and be it at Republic Square, as if everybody was waiting for a turnaround, and it came with spring, mid-spring, let's say, and the crowds were on that street, Isaim Bogoda, the northern avenue, shopping center, and all these areas were suddenly jammed with people. It was a bad start, but we left with a good spirit that life was on the verge of returning to Armenia. Not only life, but tourists were on the verge. And Armenians, I wouldn't call everybody tourists because many of them had other good-natured reasons to be back to Armenia, to help, assist, lend a hand, reach out, and many other tourists as well. So it was a good experience by the time we left Yerevan. And most of the earlier situation, of course, was the lingering effects of a war, lost territories, lost, and a loss of many thousands of our young men who were martyred defending their land, heroically defending Armenia and defending the homeland. So that certainly feeling, of course, still lingers in Armenia with some of the people. But I believe in a change. I definitely believe that we have to overcome that. We certainly bow to our heroes, and we have to move forward. There is a lot that needs to be done both in Armenia and the Artsakh that is still surviving, the Republic of Artsakh that is still surviving in the borders, the new borders, let's say.
So when you were in Armenia, you also made the trip to Artsakh. How was that experience, visiting the war-torn area, the new borders, the Russian? Do you run into Russian peacekeepers?
Not often. It was a mixed experience when we passed through that nice, beautiful, big sign that has given joy to every Armenian entering Artsakh, where it says, "Welcome to Artsakh." You're, entering Artsakh now. We stopped there, and we certainly had in our mind the things that had changed in Artsakh. There were 7 checkpoints between Goris and Stepanakert. 2 of them manned by Armenians, the first and the last, and maybe 5 or 6 manned by Russian checkpoints. At every time, they were very respectful, courteous. They asked for passports, and we all had Armenian passports and had easy, smooth access to Stepanakert. The pain was when we got close to the 2 main highways that took us to Shushi. The entrance on both sides of on the Gori-Stepanakert highway, there are two roads that lead to Shushi itself. Those places, in addition to the Russians who had checkpoints on at the starts of the road leading to Shushi, there were Azeri checkpoints. Those were very hard to see and digest. We know that a city that we lost and the population is now refugees was on our mind, looking at this kind of Odar armies who not only caused the population to leave Shushi, but also it reminded us of our services and of our, AMAA's presence in Shushi, where we had the Bedrosian camp, huge camp, the only youth camp in Artsakh, and also the Bilezikyan kindergarten, and also a shock center. We left behind those all those physical grounds, but of course the physical grounds come second to our loss of the services and the mission over there.
Right.
But
Absolutely.
Stepanakert did not welcome us the way we felt in Yerevan on May 18. Stepanakert was a bustling city. There was traffic jam there. The streets were jammed with people walking. Cars were causing, as I said, even for the first time, I met traffic jam in Stepanakert. And there was an overall feeling expressed by people and the leadership of the Artsakh Republic that there was a feeling of safety now that the war was over and the Russian peacekeepers were there. And they were everywhere. Everywhere we were on the roads in Artsakh, we met Russian soldiers, Russian trucks, Russian armory, armed vehicles, Russian bases, and so on. That gave a feeling of safety both to the people of Artsakh and us as well, together with them. There was a lot more to focus on and take care of other than the borders at that time. And that's what we did, and that's what the government intended to do and was doing. And that's why they felt the safety gave them some kinds of comfort. Now, going back to November 2020, I would say during the war, AMAA never vacated Artsakh, even though most of the population vacated Artsakh. But we were there. Our representatives were in Stepanakert. They were in the Abris. They were in the underground shelters with the people who were still in Stepanakert continuously. Thanks to the heroic efforts of Viktor Garabedian, we kept our presence over there. We were also at the Shushi Bedrosian camp a week before the city fell. So the government was moving the population from Artsakh to the safety of Armenia, and continuously groups of the population were stationed at the Bedrosian camp overnight for a couple of nights and so on, and then in an organized manner moving them to Armenia. So our activities, we were totally active during the war. Our Victor, during the day, he was around gathering important and sustenance goods during the day, and in the evening, sharing those with those in the shelters everywhere in Stepanakert, being with them, spending the night with them, and delivering food, water, or all the necessary items that was needed at the time. Then, as soon as the war ended, let's say, and ceasefire was announced on November 9, our first task was immediately to focus on our complete and full return of our services and programs to Artsakh without delay. Our immediate focus on mind was that the people of Artsakh need to return. We have to populate Artsakh. Without its population, the land means nothing to us, nor to our kin over there. Our population wanted to get back. And so we took the necessary steps of sending people from Yerevan to renovate our offices and our campuses and our facilities in all of Artsakh, in Stepanagert, in Askeran, and in Mardagerd. And it took us a few weeks to prepare that. And on December 1st, we opened our kindergartens in these three cities, full force. 95% of our personnel, of our staff, of our employees were back on location in all these three cities. Not only that, but most of our staff in Shushi, whether they were at the Bedrosian camp or in the kindergarten or show center, were on duty in Stepanagert to welcome the refugees from Shushi and the children who were at our school at the kindergarten in Shushi. And most returned. And that return started, it was I think the motion was successful, and within a few weeks, I would say, you could feel that the population was looking forward to get back to their homes. And over a few months, of course, most of the population returned to Artsakh. Our mission was 100% active. Our schools were back full of the children, laughing, running, and enrolling in our programs and services. And it gave us a feeling of comfort, joy, and satisfaction, not to take care of what we had, but immediately to start thinking about what can we do next.
Right. And I know new sort of soup kitchens emerged, and recentering, reallocating the resources took place. I know if we go through all the details of it, we'd be here all day, but we'd provide links in the description to see the specific task of how the AMAA works with relief, with school, with missions. I'm a board member of the AMAA. It's a huge privilege to be part of this organization, seeing behind the scenes how much relief work we do in various parts of the world, educational work, church work in the various locations, including Artsakh and Armenia. So if anyone's listening and wants to learn more, we're going to provide the link. It's amaa.org. And if there's a specific thing you want to help with, you could donate or learn about it via the website. And you could also reach out, and I would love to talk to you more about the various things that AMAA is doing, and especially in Artsakh. So you returned from Artsakh, Armenia, and then you headed over to Syria.
One of the many initiatives that we started post-war in Artsakh, I'd like to highlight that and maybe appeal also to all those who are listening, and if they want to be involved. And it's called Empower an Artsakh Family. We know that many hundreds and thousands of Artsakh families were out of their homes, historic homes, whether they were in Armenia or in other areas in Artsakh. And so we started this program called Empower an Artsakh Family to sponsor a family for 2 years at $2,400 a year. And so these funds were given to the family And we asked them to start some kind of a self-sustaining business with that, self-sustaining uh, uh, activity, anything that they thought of. And some of them did. For example, there were families who involved in dairy production. There were families involved in honey production with this money. And the program was very well welcomed by our supporters. I think we have supported 40 families, 40 Artsakh families with this Sponsor a Family campaign. And this is an ongoing thing. This is a 2-year program. As the families stand on their feet and feel a little independent, we will not continue it, of course, but if the need is there, we will continue. So
that's amazing, because oftentimes you think, all right, you just give the person a fish, but here in this program, you're teaching them how to fish, how to self-sustain, and it creates growth across the board and the community at large. So this is great to hear. It's Empower an Artsakh Family. It's one of the initiatives. Amazing.
So on May 31st, we flew to Beirut, and we spent 2 weeks in Lebanon and Syria. In the middle of the 2 weeks, we spent 1 week in Aleppo. Now, of course, Lebanon, which is currently the center of the Achilles heel of Armenians. That Syria was 10 years ago. Artsakh certainly had its share in 2020 and in the 90s. But today, Lebanon is the Achilles heel of our community, especially over there. There's a lot of pain in Lebanon. In the past, I would say we're getting close to 2 years now. In October, it will be 2 years that the multi-crisis, multi-level and multi-faceted crises started in Lebanon with the banking crisis, and then followed up by the freezing bank accounts of the Lebanese nationals in their in the banks, whether it's in US dollars or Lebanese pounds, and the devaluation of the Lebanese pound, which continued on over the 2 years and has probably the Lebanese pound has lost over 80% of its value. This, of course, led to bankruptcies, layoffs. People lost their jobs, lost their income. The socioeconomic conditions deteriorated. And this is something that you feel when you're in Beirut. We felt it, we touched it, we felt it when we were there. The gasoline crisis was one of the latest one. We saw it, I would say hundreds of meters in lengths of cars waiting to be fueled at fuel stations. Things have gone even worse after we left there, with the lack of existing fuel for generators. See, the country doesn't have much running electricity, which is provided by the government. So what happens is that, and this is a phenomenon in Syria and Lebanon, there are private generators that generate power in different sectors of the country, institutions, business organizations, schools, educational entities, and residential areas get their powers through generators. These generators, of course, are being fueled by a special fuel which was available on the market. So the last stage of the deterioration that happened recently is that fuel was not available in the markets.
Wow.
And so people started running out of power and electricity. And when you lose power, imagine you lose your freezing ability, your refrigerators will melt. Uh, even people even had difficulty in uh, in using their phones because they were unable to charge their cell phones. And cell phones are absolute necessity now for life over there. So life has come to a standstill, and it's still going to, from bad to worse on a continuous basis, as there's no government there for at least a year now, and all attempts so far have failed. And the longer there's no new government, which means there's no political coherence, political um, um, revival, then there's no economic or social revival, and people want to immigrate. There's an exodus, especially in young people who do not see any future in the country. So this gives a general idea of the pitiful situation.
I remember hearing that there hasn't been an economic downturn like what's happening in Lebanon in like over 150 years. It's like that severe. It's not just like a recession here, it's a collapse.
That is correct. That's something reported by the World Bank, actually. Yes, World Bank, that's the source of it. And so you can imagine that we're coming out from the 19th century, mid-19th century situations. It is awful. It is unimaginable. I think there's no way that someone like us living on this soil in America or in Europe currently can imagine the situation in Lebanon. I would like to add here, open a parenthesis as to what we did. I mean, this situation has been morphing, has been changing over time, but only in one direction. Last year, when the explosion happened at the port in Beirut, the AMAA was able within 30 days, and that, of course, the credit goes to all AMAA supporters and all AMAA members and the general public in general who came to the rescue and contributed to the funds that we were raising. Within a short period of time, we raised enough money to restore every single entity, every single building or premises in our institutions, in our schools, educational institutions, at Aygazyan University, in our union headquarters, the old age home, and other all Armenian evangelical institutions, 100% were restored back to, not only were they restored back to the original state, but even better, we improved on the premises and on the physical state of all these buildings. And I had the opportunity and chance visiting them. That certainly gave optimism to our people, to our leadership, and definitely part of the those who are involved in running those institutions. And they are hopeful, they were hopeful that they will open their doors in 2021 in this new and improved state. But the socioeconomic conditions are not helping very much. The point I was trying to make is that we have reached out to Lebanon and continue reaching out to the people, both in terms of assisting their educational budget, social activity and services budgets, and in emergency budgets have been established in AMAA's budget that you are one of those who approved in July. And together with this material help that we've been um, planning and restoring and transmitting, is, of course, the love of Christ, the love of reflecting the love of Christ and injecting hope in people that they're not alone, that they are kin, that they are family, that they are Christians who are on the other side of the world or wherever they are ready to assist and help sustain and support our people there. I saw this in Beirut, I saw this in Aleppo, and we continue on that path, not only without interruption, but more additional resolve, and with fervent, passionate um, feelings and plans, we continue on with that. Uh, so I think I not only described Lebanon at the time I was there, but unfortunately, I also tried to describe the situation that it is currently in.
What
Well,
are some of the ways? I know we've already provided support to rebuild since the explosion, but what are some other initiatives people could use to help those in Lebanon right now who may be listening?
we have around, at least last year, that I got the count, we have 4 educational institutions in Lebanon. 4 of them are, 3 of them are high school, and 1 of them is middle school. 3 of them are in Beirut, and 1 of them is in Anjar. We have enrollment of around a little under 1,000 in these schools. And one of the ways that we invite people to support education in Lebanon is to sponsor a child, sponsor a school, our school children, sponsor our students there. These parents were active members of the community for a long time. They worked, they produced, and they contributed tuition for their children, a reality that is not possible today. These people do not have the means and the resources to feed their families today. So one of the ways, of course, is to sponsor children or to contribute to the educational funding of Armenian evangelical educations in Lebanon. The other way of supporting, of course, is our social services. The services that both in Syria and Lebanon, our social service centers offer, has grown so widely because of the need that is medical, is educational, is spiritual, is psychological, is physical. It's so vast. And our centers, both in Syria and Lebanon, are involved in all type of these services nowadays. So, of course, contributions to the social services emergency funds will definitely help our centers to be able to feed people, supply medical help and medical needs, whether it's medicine or assistance with financial aid for surgical needs. The needs are vast and many and so deep. So in all these areas, in all these budget items, we need certainly funding to make them come true and to be able to continue this assistance over there. I should also mention that AMAA's programs and services in the Near East are not the result of these emergencies, are not a reaction or a response to emergencies. The AMAA has an ongoing budget of several millions of dollars that continuously sustains these communities in Syria and Lebanon for the past 102 years. There came a time when there were robust, of course, economies, robust communities over there, well-to-do individuals and businesses who helped the needs of the community that I've been talking about. But as from the 1970s ongoing to the 80s, 90s with the civil war in Lebanon and ongoing turmoil in the Near East, these communities, of course, many of the individuals making up the community left this region, and the need started to increase again, taking us back to closer to the 1920s, 30s, and 40s. So our regular budget sustaining and supporting our communities has been increasing on a regular basis. What brought these emergency funding, emergency budgets, of course, is on one part, the war in Syria in the past 10 years, and the last 2 years, the situation in Lebanon. And so our budgets has ballooned, has grown, and all these needs are continuous in these areas.
Yeah, and it's great that we were already established before the crisis has emerged, so we could be ready to help immediately and then increase it. So yeah, it's been quite amazing to the years of the Armenian diaspora with the situation in Lebanon, the civil war in Syria, and then going back to before with the Lebanese civil war, the situation in Armenia. There's this famous quote by Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers. His mom said to him, focus on the people who are doing help. Don't focus on the negative, just focus on helping. Focus on the helpers. And I think it's important for us to know that we need to be focusing on helping instead of entering into cynicisms and doubt. But what can we do? What can we do to help other people? Many of our listeners are from the Middle East. My parents are from the Middle East. My wife was born in Lebanon. They came during the Civil War. There's this connection to these places. It's not just distant lands. These are historic lands of the Armenian communities being there post genocide. I mean, these countries welcomed us when we were being slaughtered, and we've been there. And we want them to flourish, and we're going to do everything we can. And it's great that AMAA exists, and there's opportunities for us to help tangibly, not just by nice wishes, but with actual support. You guys can make a difference. People can make a difference, and it's great to know that we have these institutions in place to make a difference. Every little bit makes a difference. Zaven, as we're wrapping up, any final thoughts or things you'd like to share?
Let me share the notion, the question that probably is on the mind of many everywhere, whether they are in Syria and Lebanon, in the Near East today. And let's bear in mind that when we talk about the Near East, this situation is not only unique to Syria and Lebanon, where, of course, things are harsher, tougher, but it's true in Egypt, it's true in Iraq, it's true in Turkey, it's true in Iran, and wherever our communities are in that general region, it's true for them as well. But of course, the concentration in the larger communities are in Syria and Lebanon. There is this notion in the mind of everyone whether these communities should stay or should move, let's say, somewhere. And I'd like to share my views in that respect, respecting certainly everybody's opinion in that manner. Now, during the Syrian war, Armenians as such, whether it was the Armenian government or the diaspora, was in no way organized to assist these people. I mean, we came together haphazardly at the beginning and followed up the news. We weren't expecting what was going on there. And we did whatever, we did a fair, let's say, work and job and in assisting those who remained there. But let us remember that 75% of the community in Aleppo became refugees, and they became refugees without uh, uh, without an address. They didn't know where to go. They didn't know how to go. They moved out, and we weren't ready as a community, as a nation and diaspora. We weren't ready to give them some direction. So one of the things that the AMAA did at the time is we established what was called as Syria Lifeline. And what we did is we didn't pressure anyone and we didn't ask anyone, but whenever we felt that there were individuals, families who desired to move but did not have the ability to move through this Syria Lifeline um, program, we facilitated and paid for their move from wherever they were up to Armenia, to Zvartnots airport. Not only to the airport, we welcomed them there. We provided them temporary housing. We provided them rent subsidy. We tried to help them find a job, be recruited, and so on. So this is what we believe in the current situation as well. We do not advocate or we do not call for an exodus from the countries. Uh, Individuals and families need to make their own decisions in that sense. But those who want to move, those who want to change their uh, life and start a new life, we will give them that ability and that possibility through the Lifeline program and move them. But we have only one address to go. The only address that they're welcome to go and we're able to take them is Armenia, is the homeland. We continue on doing that. And in that way, we answer the question to ourselves, saying that those who want to move, we will facilitate their move. Those who want to stay, we will facilitate their stay by supporting and sustaining their stay. Now, one more thing, if you allow me,
Of course.
I want to focus on is uh, Haigazian University. When we talk about our education institutions in the Middle East, I mentioned the four high schools, but I didn't mention the Haigazian University, which enters its 67th academic year this year. Haigazian University is the only high level high education in the diaspora, Armenian owned and Armenian operated. That's the only one outside the borders of Armenia. For over the 67 years, thousands of Armenian youth have graduated from Haigazian University and have entered the workforce and have served their communities wherever they are all over the world, and they've been pioneers and leaders in their communities. There are still this year around 600 students at Haigazian University. 600 students who are unable to pay their tuitions, whose parents are unable to sustain them and to pay for their education. These students need help and need assistance. The AMAA does a great job, of course, having an endowment fund that benefits scholarships at Haigazian University, and we continuously are, of course, helping the university support and sustain its students. But our abilities and our resources are not adequate and are not enough. And that's, again, a sphere that we need assistance and help from good-hearted people, good Samaritans, people who have received that kind of aid in their lifetime at schools, people who, again, have seen the love of God in their lives and the blessings of God and Christ in their lives, and now are ready to help others as well. This is a call, this is a plea to them to support scholarships at Haigazian University by again making contributions through the AMAA, all tax deductible contributions and donations that will go and educate a youth, a young man over there who will graduate and go up, build himself, build a family to himself, and again turn around and support and sustain his kin and his brothers in humanity.
Thank you so much, Zaven. Again, if you feel nudged listening to one of these initiatives, take action. Just any little bit makes a difference. It's amazing that like we forget the fact that as we're talking about all these crises, we like forget about that this is happening during the pandemic of COVID as well, to just add more salt to the dangers. But there's ways to help. Instead of being down, get up and give, or support in various ways, serve. There's many ways we could help. Especially with the technology we have, you can make a big impact with a little contribution. And that's, I advise everyone. I love the book of James where it talks about pure religion is taking care of widows and orphans and their need and to be unpolluted by this world. There's something pure about just giving and supporting a family in Artsakh, whether it's through the Empower an Artsakh Family initiative or helping a young child get their education. It makes a big difference in the life of people you may not meet, but it's coming from the pure motive of just giving for the sake of giving without expecting anything in return. So if you're interested to learn more about the AMAA, I love the AMAA. I'm a board member. AMAA has helped me throughout my education as well. And it's a real privilege to have you, Zaven, and know the good work you're doing during this crazy year for the Armenian community worldwide. And it's great that you're leading this and doing a wonderful job, empowering, encouraging, and going to the grounds themselves to show the love of Christ to them. So thank you, Zaven, and it's great having you on this program.
Thank you, Ike. Thank you for facilitating this talk. And I'm sure that we've reached to listening ears. And that God has been good and been faithful with the AMAA, and certainly the more resources we have, the wider our services and programs will be.
Absolutely. Thank you for all listening. Like, subscribe, and comment. It helps promote the podcast on the various platforms. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below. And thank you for listening. God bless you. And remember to stay caffeinated, my friend. Take care.
God bless you, Ike. Thank you.